It's riot season again. Pro-Hamas terrorist protesters showed up at the White House, and this was the scene captured by some of the independent journalists who had their cameras right down. You don't see a lot of cable news stations there with their cameras set up. See how they're shaking the security fencing. There are a couple of things I want to show you here. First of all, because what we're going to do here is sort of do some compare and contrast with January 6th, right? And what happened on January 6th. We've all seen the videos from January 6th, what happened outside the Capitol building. A couple of things here that I want you to notice. First of all, look at the fence that was erected outside the Joe Biden White House here to protect the president from his constituency, the pro-Hamas terrorist group. You notice something different about that fence compared to the little bicycle racks they put outside the Capitol that Nancy Pelosi had ordered in front of the Capitol on January 6th? Yeah, the bicycle racks were pretty easy to hop over and push around and push through the Capitol Police. These things are like 10 feet tall and they're locked, but they're still, look at them pushing on them. Look at them rattling them, trying to push them over, trying to climb over them to get to Joe Biden at the White House. In fact, as night fell, it got even more serious. Now, let me just push that back here, and I want to, can you see that panel right there? See where my green mouse is there? See that panel? They actually pushed against it, lifted it up to try to break through to get to the north lawn of the White House by Lafayette Square. And they're throwing things at the police. This was the Park Service Police, Metropolitan Police Department for the District of Columbia, and Secret Service, all lined up in this fence area. Now, you'll see there's another fence there in the background. That's the usual fence that's always there around the White House. This was a separate security fence to create a further perimeter. And look at them climbing over. Did you see that over here? Look to the left here. This guy right here with his keffiyeh, dressed like a terrorist. They're all dressed like terrorists here. The dudes who killed 1,000 people on October 7th, raped innocent people, decapitated babies, they all dressed like this. Same costume. Same outfit. We've got another angle here from our friend Julio Rosas, mostly peaceful.live. Look at Julio go. This is another angle right up close as they're busting through the fence.
How many have you turned in Israel? Huh? How many? How many have turned in Israel?
So the protests continue. They went on and on and on through the night at the White House. A couple of things here. Just to remind you, over 1,000 people have been arrested after the events of January 6th. The Justice Department conducted one of the most extensive and the most expensive manhunts in their history to track down anyone who may have been outside the Capitol or in the Capitol, even the ones who walked through the door that was held open by Capitol Police. They've all been tracked down. Over 1,000 of them have been arrested for their behavior. And you've seen the videos of their behavior. And yeah, there were a handful of people who really did break the law, in my opinion, not to the extent of being put away for 20 years, like some of them have. But there were some protesters who destroyed some of the property there. They were also shot at with pellets and tear gas, and they were hit with batons, unlike these protesters. But I bring up January 6th and remind you of the 1,000 people, over 1,000 people that were arrested, to point out one very important fact from this weekend's events that you're seeing right here with the pushing of the fence and the climbing of the fence and the screaming and the taunting of police and the threats against the President of the United States on the grounds of the White House at Lafayette Square in Washington, D.C. And that's to tell you this. There were 0 arrests. Zero arrests. Not one of these scumbags were arrested. Not one of these terrorist sympathizers was arrested. Not a one. Not one arrest. Largest manhunt in U.S. Justice Department history for the over 1,000 people arrested for January 6th. Look at them. Also, you may see a slight difference in how the media covered this story. Julie Gunlock over at Independent Women's Forum and WMAL Radio in Washington, D.C., noticed a slight difference in how the media covered this. Look at the headline from the Daily Mail. White House staff relocated as pro-Palestine protesters threatened to breach security. They were just relocated. You know, there's another word for that. Evacuated. They had to evacuate the White House staff for their safety. Pro-Palestine no, they're pro-Hamas terrorists is what they are. That's a slight difference in how these things are covered, aren't they? And one other thing that I want to point out. Let's watch these guys again, shall we, as I make this point. Because I want you to see them. I want you to recognize the destruction, the attitude. I want you to look at the vitriol and anger and the vicious nature in which they confront the police. You know, say what you will about January 6th, and a lot has been said about January 6th. You don't need to hear me go on and on about January 6th at this time. But whether you agree with the actions of the protesters that day or not, or whether you have mixed feelings about the actions of the January 6th protesters, it is an undeniable fact that the people who breached the Capitol on January 6th for a 3-hour incident where they caused nobody harm, by the way. Yes, I know that some police officers were injured, but it wasn't as a direct result of the actions of the protesters on the whole. Again, I'm talking about the 1,000 that were arrested. Say what you will about them, but their motives that day were that they legitimately believed that the 2020 presidential election was conducted in the most extraordinary, unprecedented way in this country, such as we have never seen before, with basic election fraud protocols just completely tossed out the window. In some states, in an unconstitutional manner, because they weren't modified by the state legislature as prescribed by the Constitution, but either a governor or a secretary of state under executive actions for a health pandemic crisis, just with the stroke of a pen said, nope, we're going to do the election this way today. They were angry about that. They were worried about that. They believed that in some states, it was very real election fraud. And they wanted an examination of that election, okay? I don't think anyone would dispute that that's what the motives were. And again, I'm not even making the case for them. But that's what the motives of the people on January 6th were. Now look at these people. These people are doing what they're doing because they are in support of terrorists who murdered over 1,000 people because they're Jewish, raped the women, kidnapped. They're still holding American hostages right now. And look at their behavior with that motive. And zero arrests. And you wonder why people are frustrated in this country. You wonder why people are pissed off in this country and believe that there are two sets of rules, that there's a two-tier system of justice. It's unsustainable.